Welcome again to the $1 Million Career, where we show you how to plan, build, and supercharge your own $1 Million career. And I have with me today my returning guest host, Mr. Craig Picken.
What's happening,
Craig is
Rob?
president of North Star Search Group based in Wilmington, North Carolina, an industry-leading recruiting firm specializing in aviation, aerospace. So how you doing this morning, Craig?
What's happening, Rob?
Getting ready for
I'm good.
Saratoga.
I am ready for a boys' weekend in Saratoga.
If there's anybody out there that's going to be at Saratoga Racetrack in New York for the Travers, watch out, man. Yeah,
There you go.
can't wait, man.
We've got our lawn chair, we've got our cooler, ready to go. I'm ready to put all professionalism aside for 3 days. How's that?
Exactly, man.
So
Hey, so how's the beach, man? Have you been out there?
yeah, it's been good. It's been great. It was waves were up last weekend. The waves were up. I've been there this week. It's been kind of rainy here, but beach is good. Labor Day weekend's coming up. Summer's kind of coming to an end. You can feel it. All the kids are going back to school.
Great, man.
My kid's back in college now. Well, one's back at school. The other one starts this week, I think. So,
Oh, nice, man. Hey, so I want to talk about this new rage now amongst workers, sort of a spin-off of the Great Resignation, which we've talked about. But this whole notion of quiet quitting, it's amazing.
I've been reading about quiet quitting. I saw a couple. I read about it in the Wall Street Journal. I saw a couple of newscasts on it, and it just makes me think the world is losing its mind.
You know, I used to listen to NPR a lot with Nina Totenberg back before it just became way off the deep end. But they did a special on quiet quitting on Friday as I was driving home from work, and pretty interesting what's going on. This whole notion of quiet quitting, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially people are now just putting in their 8 hours a day. They're not going above and beyond the call of duty. They're essentially just doing the bare minimum because they have outside interest. There's a lot of reasons why people are doing this, but that's essentially what's going on now. 64% of the people now admit that at work, they're just laying down and doing the bare minimum.
They're doing what they're doing. And look, I get it. I mean, I get it. It's rise and grind. We are a rise and grind nation. And we have been, this is what, I think what makes the United States different than anywhere in the world is we are a rise and grind nation. Yeah. And that's why, as a country, we innovate. We are always, we're competitive. We're always innovating. You see, new technologies coming out of Silicon Valley, and I don't know what to say other than that. Yes, we are a rise and grind nation.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic had a little bit to do with it too, because I think there's a lot of people during the pandemic really took stock of themselves and their place in the world, both in the workplace and at home, and have really throttled it back, and are thinking now more of work-family balance, and that they have people that they lost to COVID or got very sick. So it just gives people a whole different perspective. So well, I can definitely see some of the causes of it.
Absolutely. People are like, hey, look, I don't want to be a stranger to my kids. I get it. I don't want to be putting in 70-hour work weeks. I get it. I don't want to be on the train an hour and a half each way to get to the office. I get it. And I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with it. I think what you're finding now is, once again, it comes down to this uniqueness of, businesses are figuring out, hey, look, how much remote can we tolerate?
Yeah.
How much, do we need to be in the office 2 days a week versus 5? Okay. Does the person in AR really need to come to the office, or can she or he just do their job from home? I think business leaders are having to sit there and think about their teams and saying, okay, what do we really need to do,
Yeah.
to get the right people or to get.
Here's something I'm seeing too, and you tell me if you don't see this in the aerospace and aviation business, but I know particularly amongst small to medium-sized insurance firms, I see a lot of situations where people call me and will explain to me, hey, we used to have 3 people in my department and one person retired and the other one's on paternity leave or maternity leave. And so we went from 3 full-time people to 1.5 or maybe 2.
Yep.
And the work's increasing, but you know what? The owner's not going to hire anybody else. So now I'm doing like
Right.
twice as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And I don't even have I don't even get a pat on the back. So why should I, work 60 hours a week when
Yep.
the owner's still making all the money? He's driving a Cadillac, he's going on vacations, but here I am grinding away in the office
I
on
totally,
Fridays,
I totally agree with it. And I think it comes down to, look, it comes down to this. It comes down to hard conversations.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the person having, look, life, life without conflict is not life. And you have to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
And if your boss is down, if your boss decided that the department of 3 working 40 hours a week, 120 man hours can now be done with 2 and 120 man hours, it's time for somebody to have a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, boss, somebody left, you were paying them 100 grand a year. You're asking everybody else to step up, but we're not seeing anything for it. Something needs to change.
I think you're right. And this goes back to some of our previous podcasts that we've done about how to handle an annual review, how to handle your relationships with your boss, how to fire your boss, how to manage your boss. I think a lot of it is exactly what you said. Sometimes it's on you, the worker, to go to your boss and say, hey, listen, we need to have an honest conversation about what you just said exactly. We're short-staffed. I'm working too hard. I'm not working on the right things. But too many times people don't want to have that conversation. But you have to have the courage to sit down and have that conversation. You're exactly right.
They're afraid to. They're afraid to. And look, there's a lot of reasons they're afraid to. And it's easy for us to sit there and say, hey, grow some and have the tough conversation. But the balance is now where the balance was in the employer's pocket. The balance is now shifting to very talented people can now say, yo, this ain't right. I'm not going to work 60 hours a week and collect 40 hours of pay.
Yeah.
But this goes back. It's funny because I keep thinking back to when I was in real estate development. And a cohort of mine was selling a house for, a billionaire. And the billionaire egos, it was a billionaire buying a house from a billionaire. And the billionaire egos got into a $60,000 pissing contest. And it was over a hole in a roof. And my cohort looked at the guy selling his mansion and says, you got a hole in your roof. It's $60,000 to fix it. If you want this deal, pay the $60,000, fix the roof. And the guy was balking. And the hard conversation was from my buddy to the seller of this house mansion was, if this guy walks away, you still have a hole in your roof. And the next person that comes along isn't going to forget or not notice that you have a hole in the roof. Right. So, once again, it comes down to, I think the moral of that story is understanding where your power is in the conversation. It's like, I am working 40 hours a week. I am getting paid 60, or working 60 hours a week. I'm getting paid for 40.
Yeah.
If I leave, the cost for you to replace me will not be insignificant. You're not going to have someone walk right into my shoes and hit the ground running, because that just doesn't work. Yeah. And the fact is that you're just, happy. I mean, you think about from the people that are quiet quitting, if they would just shift the conversation to something like, hey, look, here's where my strength is in this whole dynamic. It's not a hard conversation or a confrontational conversation. It's a realistic conversation. Here's the value I bring your business.
Yeah, it was, it's always been very, thought provoking when I look back on my career in real estate too, way back in 1980s. I had several bosses who would see me, after I had departed the company, working for somebody else. I'd see them at a conference and something, and they would always say, Rob, you should have spoke up more. You should have come into my office. You should have asked me for the promotion. You should have asked me for more responsibility. But to be honest with you, I'm really sorry. But during those days, we had a lot of stuff going on, mergers, acquisitions. I was just really busy.
Mhm.
If you had just come into my office and talked to me, you'd probably still be working for me. So I know it's easy for us to say because we've been in the business world for 35, 40 years, but for people that are in their late 20s, early 30s, you've got to own your career. You've got to own your personal life. So it's up to you to go in and lay down the markers in a very respectful way.
If you are not watching out for your career, nobody is watching out.
Exactly.
I am too busy.
Right.
People who have 20, 30, 40, 50 person teams are too busy to watch out for your career.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's something you need to watch out for, your personal career. But here's kind of the, so I'm going to, the quiet quitting thing. Let's go back to it. And here's the danger in quiet quitting. The clock doesn't stop.
Right.
Every day we get a little older and a little older and a little older. And then one day you hit, 50, 60, and you're a manager in your company. You've been there 25 years, 30 years, and the best you could do is become a manager because, that's what you aspired to be.
Yeah.
Well, over the years, they started you at 100 grand, and then you got your 3% merit raises. And then one day the company wakes up and says, this person we're paying $200,000 to be a manager can be replaced by a 30-year-old.
Right.
I
mean, time is your best asset, but it's also your worst enemy. You don't want to waste time.
Well, I think it comes down to, the realistic expectations. I remember in the Great Recession, that's where it affected older workers the most. It affected older workers, and you'd see, I remember reading heartbreaking stories about people that were, late 50s, and they're saying they'd sent out hundreds of resumes and they couldn't get any bites because people would sit there and say, hey, your compensation expectations are pretty high. You did okay, nothing special. And those were the people that got left behind.
Yeah.
And, I think that's where the challenge, now look, if you're quiet quitting and you better be socking away, you just better be saying, okay, I'm going to do what it needs to do. But, your boss recognizes that. Your boss recognizes that too. They see you're doing enough to get by.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think this quiet quitting is sort of a false metaphor for setting more boundaries at work too.
I do.
I don't know about you, Craig, but when you own your own business, you have to set boundaries, or else you'll be working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you'll get burned out. So one of the things I coach people on is setting boundaries and working in blocks of time, even like working really hard on something for an hour, to take a 15-minute break, work on something intensely for 2 or 3 hours, and then take an hour and a half off to work out, or work intensively for 4 days and then take Friday off. You have to set boundaries and focus.
Well, I
That's
think,
one way to get
and I totally agree with you. I absolutely totally about setting boundaries. And this is this is where we change the rise and grind to, I will rise and grind to a point, but everything has limits. And look, this is probably, my wife and I talk about this a lot. When our kid, I've got twins, Rob, and Riley and Maddie, and they were premature. And when they were infants, We brought him home from the hospital. They, and we got him out of the NICU, and it was pure hell. We didn't have any, we had nobody. The kids, they were screaming one day, and I looked at Lisa and I was like, either we get a control of them right now, or they control us for the rest of our lives.
Exactly.
And
right.
it was like this epiphany.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And, so what happened? We set a schedule. Everything was a military schedule. We set boundaries we set boundaries for our lives at every stage of the game. And I think that, look, I think that it's okay for people to turn off their phones and
Yeah.
their emails at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to die if that email between the hours of, if you're in normal business, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. the next day, nobody's going to die if that email isn't answered.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody's going to die if that phone call, goes to voicemail, or that text just, you text somebody and you say, hey, I'm with my kids at a soccer game. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Everybody respects that.
Yeah. The other thing about this whole notion of quiet quitting too is, I mean, when you get out of college, you really have to figure out what really excites you too. I mean, you really have to do your own career planning. You have to be the master of your destiny, because, if you're working in a government job and you're just putting in time and you have no interest in it really, yeah, you're going to have an increased chance of the quiet quitting thing. But I mean, if you're doing something that you love doing, I mean, sort of like you and I love recruiting. It's a passion. I do it because I want to help people and make money. But a lot of times I'm not even looking at the clock. It's like 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, geez, I better turn this thing off here. I've been going at it for 12 hours.
I'm the same way. I check, I'm horrible. I check my email 1,000 times a day, even on the weekends. My kids, Maddie and I were at lunch today, and she's like, why are you looking at your phone? I'm like, I have no idea. Once again, I have my own business. It's 24/7. I think about it 24/7. That's the downside of owning your own business. But if it's
That's
not,
what I try and do. I try and look at this not from an owner's perspective, because our perspective is a lot different. Our business is our life, and time is money. We always got to be on. Our clients depend on us, and that's why they hire us. But looking at it from a worker's point of view, I definitely see the seeds of how this thing started through the Great Resignation.
no doubt.
It's definitely, I mean, it would be hard for anybody to argue against the fact that, by and large, employers, companies, firms are exploiting their workers now. I mean, not all of them, but I see people working longer, doing more, not getting that pat on the back, getting a paltry 3% raise when inflation is 10%. In the insurance business, the owner pulls up in the parking lot with a brand new Cadillac, and he's in the office working 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
The CSRs, the account managers, are killing themselves working till 7 o'clock at night. They don't even get a pat in the back. So I definitely see where this is coming from, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I think owners and bosses are getting the message now where they are no longer in complete control.
Well, I think it comes so yes. The answer is yes. Lisa will tell you, when she was a finance person at Gulfstream, the CFO used to just keep her there until 8, 9, 10 at night, just because,
Just because he could.
It's like, because I'm so busy, I can't wait until 9 o'clock at night to see your stuff. But there was that book that was written, the 1 Minute Manager.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? And it's like, at what point does your problems become mine? If you've got the big bonus on the line and you're getting all the equity, and you need me to stay late, until 9 or 10 o'clock, so that, you ultimately can get your big bonus. At what problem did your problem become my problem?
Exactly
right. The answer is it never did.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, and that's a great question for the heart. At what point does your issue become my issue?
Yeah.
Are you where, And that's where people really need to understand in their own lives, and they put their boundaries around their own lives. Look, instead of quiet quitting, quit,
Yeah.
quit. If you're not going to find what your life is looking for, where you're at, basically, I think quiet quitting is lazy in a lot of ways.
It's intellectually dishonest too.
It's intellectually dishonest. But what I think it is that if you're not happy with your surroundings, your current environment, change your environment.
Well, it goes back to a common theme in a lot of our podcasts, and that's extreme ownership.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to own your career. And like you said, if you're not happy with your career, if you find yourself kicking back and relaxing, not doing the extra, not going the extra yard, then there's a problem. You got to figure out what that problem is.
Right.
And then I think it's up to you to have the courage to go to your boss and try and work it out. Just don't quit, or just don't quietly quit.
Mm-hmm.
Address the problem, own it.
Right.
And then it may be that this is not the right place for you to be working. In that case, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Good friend of mine, Pete Gold, retired Green Beret, one of my best friends. He told me once, he says, when I work on contract, if I find myself not giving 120%, if I find myself not totally into this,
mm-hmm.
if I find myself not actively coaching, mentoring, and instructing other Green Berets, I'm not going to steal their money. I'm going to go to the guy, the program manager, and say,
Mm-hmm.
what? I'm not going to be on this rotation anymore, because it would be dishonest for me to take your money, not
Right.
giving 100%. And that's the attitude I think more people have, because Pete Gold owned it.
Yep. No, I think it's, look, but changing your station in life, changing your environment is scary.
Yeah.
It's, once again, it comes down to what we talked about earlier. It's a little bit of courage, the courage to have a hard conversation with your boss. But it's also the courage to go, this ain't working for me. And I do it. Yeah, I had a conversation on Friday with a young professional, and I like him. I like him a lot. And he's 27 years old, and he's now a principal engineer at a very well-known aerospace company. And he's talking to me. He goes, "Look, I know this isn't the place for me for the long haul." Like, okay, you've got some very unique skills. And this is where it comes down to. People need to understand what their options are. I'm like, you have some very unique skills. You got a LinkedIn subscription? Yeah. Why don't you sit there and take this weekend and think about all the companies out there that need your unique skills? He is a focused expert in a certain system.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you go find the CEOs of those companies? He goes, well, should I just reach out to HR? I'm like, no. Why don't you just reach out to the CEO? I'm like, just reach out. Hey, Mr. Smith, I am a focused expert in this. I want something different in my life. If there's an opportunity, a growth opportunity for me on your team, here's what I bring to the table. And you hit email, you hit send.
Yeah.
Send out 10 of those messages, you'll get 4 responses back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's courage. It's not HR. It's not reaching out to HR. It's reaching out to the people that can make a difference in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's owning it. That's extreme ownership.
Yeah.
You're taking accountability for it. But you know what it is? It's great that you talk to that guy, because this is where coaching comes into play. Everybody really does need a coach. I mean, I see these people out there floundering in these companies. I call them up and they don't know what's going on. They're lost souls. They just need some direction. And then I have other people that I've placed. And of course, clients never like you calling on candidates that you've placed, right? Because they're always thinking you're going to steal them away or something, which is something that would be really stupid for us to do. But nonetheless, there's a handful of people that I've placed with my insurance clients that I keep in touch with. And man, it's such a big advantage for them. I mean, not tooting my own horn, but for them to come to me and say, hey, Rob, I got an upcoming annual review. You got any ideas? How should I
Mhm.
handle it? Well, let's do some role playing, And then we started back and forth. And after 30 minutes or so, the individual's like, wow, I have a
Mhm.
whole new perspective on how to talk to my boss now. And they
Yep.
will go in there and get just about everything they want. And if they don't get something, they'll ask for something,
Mhm.
how to negotiate with your boss. You ask for a raise, he doesn't give you the raise, you don't get the 10%, maybe you
Mhm.
get 5%, but maybe you get an extra week of PTO or something, or maybe you
Yep.
get a bonus. So, a lot of it is these people are not trained enough because you don't learn these skills and strategies in college. That's what you need a coach for. And if people have the information, if they're armed with that information, they can really jumpstart their career, man. But a
What
lot of it is just people just don't know what they don't know.
people, bingo, people don't know what they don't know. And, I lived in West Virginia for 5 years. Loved it. Yeah, but you go to Logan County, West Virginia, where it's very rural, very remote, very coal mine oriented. People are like, "Well, this is the best I can get."
Yeah,
Well, no, it's really not,
exactly.
because look, if you change your geography, which is scary as hell, there's more out there in the world. You talk about the assembly guy at General Motors in Murfreesboro, Indiana, or wherever they assemble cars. They're why are they on the assembly line for 30 years? Because they probably think it's about the best they can get. Somebody out there told them
Yeah.
that this is the best you'll ever be able to do in life.
Yeah.
And and that's wrong. I hate that. I hate to see people limited because somebody told them the best you'll ever be is a pick a whatever. I think people have every person out there has got so much more within them.
Well, it's very interesting you say that about the West Virginia thing because, in most people can't afford a coach. Okay.
Mhm.
Particularly if you're somebody making $60,000-$70,000 a year. That's why it's important to find yourself a mentor
Mhm.
within your organization, because if you find a mentor in your organization, magical things will happen. I mean,
Yep.
you know this, right? In your career, you probably always had a mentor, right? I always had a mentor. Get
Yep.
a mentor because maybe then that mentor will guide you, empower you, enable you to
Mhm.
improve your career with your company, with your existing boss. So you won't have to
Mhm.
resort to this whole notion of quietly quitting.
Yep.
Don't settle for that, man. Try and get a mentor.
Well, I think, yeah, when you get the mentor is the person who may say, get the hell out of here.
True, too.
Get out of
Exactly.
this, get out of this company. Because what happens? What happens? It's Pareto principle. 20% of the people in the company make, 80% of the value. And what happens when you find that? What happens? Look, people go to the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And what they do is they find the person in the organization who gets the most done the fastest, and they just keep throwing more crap at them. Here, Joey, here, Joan, you
Yeah.
guys rock. We're throwing more stuff on you. And
Yeah.
eventually, they're happy to throw the stuff on you, but very rarely is everybody, ooh, Joey and Joan are really good. What are we
Yeah.
doing for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing for them? And that becomes the question. So, a good mentor may be the person to say, hey, look,
Yeah.
you're done here. You've reached the point in this organization that you can go no further. Go find somewhere else where you can grow.
Yeah. The
Changing
other thing
geography.
too is addressing burnout. I mean,
Mhm.
I've experienced burnout. I'm
Oh,
sure you have too.
I'm there.
But that's why we're going to Saratoga, right?
That's why I'm going to Saratoga.
Right. So I mean, think about it. It's interesting that you and I are going to Saratoga with another mutual friend. We're going to spend 4 or 5 days
Mhm.
watching the horses, having some beers, probably talking a lot about business.
Yep.
But I mean, it's going to be total relaxation. I mean, I'm working all day today
Yeah.
and I'm working extra Monday, Tuesday, because on Wednesday, I'm going to be all caught up. Now, of course, we're still going to get phone calls and emails, but basically, I'm going to be wrapping up some stuff because I need to relax, and you can't relax if you're still working 18 hours a day. So,
So my wife was asking me last night, she goes, why are you driving? to Saratoga. I'm like, well, I'm going to go see Rob and I'm going to pick him up, and that's 6 hours. Then it'll be another 6 hours to Saratoga. She's like, why are you driving? Why didn't you just fly up? And I'm like, yeah, here's the real answer. I will get in my car Wednesday morning and I will turn on Pandora.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And I will drive for 6 hours, and I will think it will be quiet time,
Yes.
and it will be me time, and it will be just, and then, and then obviously good conversations on Thursday when we're heading up, but you need that.
Yes,
The
exactly.
bound and look, the boundaries of the quiet quitting is not just the job.
Right. Exactly.
Job, it's family, it's kids,
Exactly.
it's soccer practice, it's I got to go to Costco, I got to do it, and it's like I got to get the grass cut, and it's every minute of every day. People are like, I just need some time. But the right answer is not just throwing up your hands and going, hey, I'm at this job where I really have no control, or I feel like I have no control. The real answer is, hey, look, set boundaries for your life where, you can get a mutual benefit. You're like your employer. If you set a boundary with your employer, I think they'll respect it. But you gotta set the conversation. You gotta have the conversation.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Craig. Setting boundaries is the alternative to just quietly quitting. So, so how do people get a hold of you, Craig, anyways?
Well, don't get a hold of me this week. 910-231-4037 is a phone. It's Craig at northstaresg.com.
You're on LinkedIn too, right?
I'm all over LinkedIn. Just follow me, send me a LinkedIn request. I'll accept it.
Good, man. Well,
it's all good.
Yeah, I appreciate your feedback on this topic, quietly quitting, but I'm not going to be quietly quitting anytime soon, and particularly over the next few days, because I'm going to get everything finished so you and I and everyone else can have a good trip. So until Wednesday night, man, have a good rest of the week.
You do the same. Be safe. See you.
All right,
See you in a couple of days.
Thanks, man.
Bye.